Hi everyone, welcome back to the Vinquisition with Alexis Percival. Today I'm going to talk about the grape Chenin Blanc. I was in South Africa a few weeks ago and I had the opportunity to finally meet in person the winemaker Ginny Povall. She's originally from the US. She's been living for quite some time in South Africa. She lives in Stellenbosch and she has a winery called Botanica. I have been familiar with her wines for over a decade, and we poured them at Ruffian in the past. Really loved them, and it was a wonderful opportunity to taste through her wines. I had the great chance to be there on the morning that she was opening all of her back vintages in a vertical for a wine critic who was there. So what better time to taste all the way back to Ginny's first vintage? I thought it would be helpful to do a little intro to Chenin Blanc in South Africa before we jump into that. It's a really cool story, and so I wanted to give everyone a little background first. And I should say that though Chenin Blanc is very well known from South Africa, they also make, and she also vinifies a lot of different wines as well. She makes reds, she makes some sparkling, she's doing all sorts of things, but um, a lot of people associate uh, South African white wine with Chenin Blanc. So that's what today's video is about. So Chenin Blanc is also known as Steen, Steen. There were cuttings that were originally brought in 1655 in the 17th century, so really well documented when they were brought. Um, and the cuttings, of course, Chenin Blanc is originally from the Loire Valley in France, where it's thought to have been there for 1,000 years, also well documented. Um, and so 1655 is not yesterday. That is some time ago. I think that illustrates part of the problem some of us wine professionals have with designated wines as old world versus new world, because though it's not thousands of years in the new world, certainly these grape varieties are well established as well as the winemaking. And so anyway, um, that's a separate video, I guess. So the wines were brought here for winemaking, and excuse me, the vines were brought here for making wine. But then a couple hundred years, it's widely planted and it's used for making brandy, right? If you distill the grapes down, you'll get grape brandy. And so we're talking really bulk wine. Now, some of that still happens. If you're driving around South Africa, you will see just monoculture of vines, and a lot of it is still used for bulk wine production and for brandy production. However, in the 80s and 1990s, people were recognizing that there were good quality parcels of old vines of Chenin Blanc and other things that were planted, and there was a resurgence in interest in making high quality wine. Chenin Blanc in particular is well suited to the hot climate there because it retains its acidity. So if you think about Chenin Blanc from the Loire, we're thinking the appellations of Vouvray, for example, and the sparkling wine there, which is very high acid, a little appley. So it's well suited to be there. And winemakers in South Africa use Chenin Blanc to make all styles of white wine. So you have Cap Classique, which is the designation for traditional method sparkling wine. You can have light, dry, and crisp white wines that don't see any wood usage in the vinification process, all the way through dry but tropical and rich styles of Chenin Blanc into straw wines, which are when the grapes are dried and then pressed to make a sweet wine. And you also see some botrytis, so you have some botterized wines, so botrytis affected sweet wines, like Sauterne, for example. Not that they're making Sauterne, but in that style of Sauterne. That is so very popular. So Chenin Blanc, very generous in terms of the winemaking, and South Africa is the largest global producer of Chenin Blanc wines. Without further ado, this is my little taste through with Ginny, and I'm not in front of her any longer, but I can say I meant every single word. The wines were spectacular, and it truly speaks to how well Chenin Blanc can age. We don't think of white wines traditionally as being ageable, but wow, these just got even more incredible. And I have to say, for her inaugural vintage, wow, I'd put it up there with anything. I would gladly drink that again. Unfortunately, there's very little left. So very lucky to have been able to taste that wine. Thank you, Ginny, and I'll cut to the video. Thanks.
I don't even have that in my glass.
Well, you cannot draw some of this one.
No, it's all right. It was just so different.
Nobody comes. So this is the first wine.
First Shannon Eva? First Shannon Eva. This was, Hank Lang Vineyards in Glen William. And their vineyards were planted in 1960, but probably earlier than that. And previous to my buying the grapes in 2009, they all went to a cooperative and just made bulk wine from it. So 2009 was really the first vintage for me, making wine, and also, first vintage for them, actually having someone trying to make a proper wine from their grapes. So that's where it all started.
And they were planted then, but are they old vines?
Yeah, old vine, bush vine, 450 meter elevation, like 1,500 feet elevation, dry farmed. So it's a very unique vineyard site. Maybe 30 miles as the crow flies to the ocean. So even though it's a really super hot area, it gets this cooling influence from the ocean, and the acidity is there.
Totally. Still. Do you still buy from this?
Yeah. So I only showed my older vintages today, but all comes from the same place.
Wowza.
And half of it was fermented in 400-liter French oak barrels, and a portion of it was in a stainless steel tank.
Okay.
And then I've kind of pretty much kept the same methodology of fermentation, but now I've just moved 100% to the 400-liter oak barrels.
And it's all used, I assume.
Yeah, I still have one that I started with. It's still alive and well.
That's good. They're expensive, so.
Yeah, but I don't really want the oak influence, just the
So when was the last time you tasted the 09, Ginny?
I attempted to open a bottle of it for a wine writer about 3 years ago, and the cork crumbled. So I didn't try again. I only have, I think I have 2 bottles left of it.
Wow.
So since it's the first wine I ever made, I try to, try to,
Hang on.
but I haven't really actually tasted it for some number of years, for fear that it was just probably over the hill, but it's not at all.
It's not at all.
Definitely not over the hill.
I wonder if this is the oldest Shannon I've ever had. Maybe.
Well, it just shows you like the ability for Shannon to age.
Yeah.
And a lot of Americans, I'm not sure, think about aging wine so much. Maybe they don't have the space, but Shannon's one of those things that does really well.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Or they think about aging the sweeter ones with residual sugar, more in like a Riesling kind of ageability.
The other one that's really worthy is the 2016 and the 2015. Those stood out to me. Although 13 also was good. These two stood out. Especially 15 was a really nice year for everyone.
Why, in particular?
Everybody had nice acids. You didn't really have to do much. I think primarily it wasn't that hot. Nice winter.
Is that a industry semi-secret, like how much people acidify around here?
Well, I think sometimes you really have to. I think, it's if you get hot weather and you've got the grapes, especially like Cabernet, which hangs for the entire season, and if you've got a lot of heat waves, sure. Otherwise you're gonna have a shitty, flabby, boring wine.
This is so much more savory. Like this was going into like I'm gonna say butterscotch because it's too heavy-handed, but it's getting that development. This is greener.
Yeah, the acids are. It's a lot more acid in this than this. And actually, this, because this was the first time, this vineyard is 3 hectares in size, and it's interplanted. It's a field blend with Cinsault, Semillon, Palomino, all sorts of things that are intermixed. And at the time, it's the first time I've ever actually tried to figure out a pick date, and it was quite difficult because trying to figure out how to sample such a large size and determine what was going on. So I think I picked this pretty ripe, riper than I picked, now.
A little trial and error.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, I said it last night. That field blend is the wildest field blend I've ever heard of, too. Like, what a wacky Palomino. Sure. So why not?
I think a lot of the older vineyards have that going on, because I'm not sure how sophisticated where they were getting the material from.
Right.
Where they're getting it from nurseries, I have no idea.
Someone else told me that there was a big issue, particularly during apartheid, with the quality of the stock being infected with like leaf roll. And
it's interesting that you brought that up. There was a French university that came here and did sampling of all of the Chenin vineyards to try to understand what the clonal varieties were and what might work in the change of climate in the northern hemisphere. So the only Chenin that they found that was not infected
Was in that bottle.
this farm and 2 of the other farms that are in that area, because they're so isolated. Because this is actually own rooted,
that's incredible.
so it's in sand and it's super isolated.
Yeah, in case I post this and people don't know what that means, almost 100% of vines that are planted now are grafted onto American rootstock, and it's a requirement. Is it a requirement here if you plant?
I don't know if it's a requirement, but I think
Because in the EU it is.
People would do it because they wouldn't want to risk planting something as expensive it is to do that and then risk
Have it die. Yeah. So, like in the EU, you have to. So, if it exists and it's own rooted, that's a really cool and special thing because you can't just plant a vine. Because you could risk spreading disease to your neighbors and.
Phylloxera, yeah. I don't know what the vector is for the spread of phylloxera. I have no idea what that is, but yeah.
So good.
And then 16. Also pretty interesting, but in a different way.
Was it also a good vintage year for people, or was it more?
So 16, I think, was sort of becoming the beginning of the drought, 16, 17, and then the full-on drought was in 18. So the tonnages started to shrink a little bit for me. But yeah, 2018. Normally I started getting about 8 tons from that 3-hectare site, and then in 18 I got 1.75 tons.
Oh my God!
So this they're very tiny bunches, they're very tiny berries.
And dry farmed up there, you said.
Yeah, so there's no
nothing you can even do.
irrigation, nothing you can do. It is what it is. So whatever the weather throws at it.
This tastes a lot more youthful.
I think the nose on the 15 more evolved, but it's still really bright. Whereas the nose is fresher, I think, on 16.
This could have been made last year. Like, I really wouldn't be able to tell it. I mean, there's a little textural thing happening. It's super fun.
So I'm going to jump over to 17 because these two wines come from a different vineyard up there. This is 18.
And this is drought time.
Yeah. So theoretically, it should be more concentrated, but
This backdrop is making me really happy.
Authentico.
I want to learn how to play.
I do get that concentration on it. It's not in the same way as the older ones, but just the fruit intensity.
More to me, this is more has more salinity. Is that what it
I
is,
haven't
or
tasted it yet, but
there's something there I can't quite? Also has different weight on the palate. Let's see alcohol in this.
it's
This is lower
hotter.
alcohol.
It's crazy because it feels hotter.
Maybe the alcohol you feel, but it's 13. To me, the alcohol sticks out a little bit of this.
Yeah, it feels salty. It's like a salted apple.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's great. That will be an interesting one to see what happens to that down the road. Is fruit's there or it's not there? Ooh, bracing.
Yeah.
And what's the difference with the vineyard sites
So
and these
this
guys?
is Joshua Visser on the backside of the mountain where these are coming from. It's a lower elevation, still the same sandy soils with the super clay underneath, but deep clay soils. I had a small little portion block there that I worked with. I never got more than 2 tons off of a 2-hectare site, and it wasn't really worth farming, but we did it anyways. And this is Cristal Heights from the same farm. So since I had a bottle, I thought I'd open it just to see what was going on. It's different block. The vines look completely different. So yeah, let's taste mine first.
A little side by each. So when do you do like élevage, like are you aging in bottle or you leave it in tank before you bottle?
No, I typically leave it on the gross lees for around 6 months, sometimes a little bit longer. Sometimes I've done it a little earlier, kind of random. And then I rack it off the gross lees and then usually go straight to bottling. I don't let it hang around the tank because it makes me nervous.
Oh, airplane interaction. Should have brought my stupid microphones.
So 2017 was another year that had really nice weather that allowed for nice acidity. Completely different.
It feels like it's got more citrusy. It's like a lemony.
Completely different to me than the other wines. I think it's a bit softer.
I think what's cool is being able to. It's a true comparison because it's the same. You're making them the same, and so really you can pick out like fine details. And do you know if the winemaking on this one is similar?
I have no idea.
Oh, all right. Mystery.
I have no idea.
Totally different. Good. Totally different. It's wild. I would definitely be able to pick that out.
Mm.
And I'm not a super taster, but it's totally different.
I think actually mine shows more age. I'm not sure actually.
The acidity on this one feels like super tingly and like active. Do you know what I mean?
And mine is definitely softer on the tongue.
Mm-hmm. I feel it all like right in the front of my tongue.
Well, there you have it.
It's a cool comparison. Thank you so much. What a treat. Good day to be here. Thanks.